The last few weeks have been turbulent ones for Blizzard, all starting when they announced that they believed card nerfs for Boomsday would be unnecessary. The community backlash was swift, in no small part to Magic the Gathering Arena enticing players to play their game instead of Hearthstone. This caused Blizzard to quickly re-evaluate their stance, the end result being 3 card nerfs that surprised many players. Mana Worm was up to 2 mana, Aviana up to 10, and Giggling Inventor was murdered violently. Coming off the heels of Blizzard claiming this was unnecessary is disjointing to say the least, and sadly has players acting, shall I say, frustrated. I'm going to start off by praising Blizzard's decisions here, because frankly, they're worthy of praise. Of the 1 mana 1/3 minions that Blizzard has given us, Mana Worm has always been the strongest. The coin plus a 1 mana spell would turn this into a 1 mana 3/3, which is frankly ridiculous. Tempo Mage games were often decided on whether or not a turn 1 Mana Worm came down. While other nerfs may have been more appropriate to balancing the card, I'd rather Blizzard over-nerf a card than under-nerf it. We have thousands of cards to enjoy in this game, who cares if one of them should have been a 1 mana 1/2 instead? So, good all around. The Aviana nerf is, well, exactly why I recommended at the start of this meta. Wild Druid has been a problem for a while with Aviana Kun, and Juicy Psychmelon managed to further enable that. I think WoW players got complacent to how horrifically broken these 2 cards in unison were, since they've done nothing but choose to complain about the Psychmelon instead. Rest assured, the Melon is dead for the foreseeable future, and any Aviana Kun combo decks will now require an Innervate to work, which is a significant hurdle to overcome. All that is magnificent, so another point for Blizzard. Finally, Giggling Inventor dying in excruciating fashion is surprising. I originally expected a small change, then realized a mana nerf probably made more sense, but I never anticipated a 2 mana nerf. Sadly, this means I can't use it in an even Mech Hunter. Oh well. However, what this nerf does mean is that this card will see 0 play going forward, which means aggro decks will lose their token generator, Rogue and Warrior in particular will get a hit, and Death Rattle Hunter will have some of its key pieces become less useful. This is the real meta shifter, so once again, Blizzard wins. One of the key benefits of card nerfs is the meta shift as a result of that, and this change will be hugely significant. So with all that said, you'd think Blizzard would be lavished in praise for their wisdom. At least you would think that if you didn't know anything about the Hearthstone community. We're the type of people to scream OP or dust at every card reveal. We're not exactly a bastion of positivity. Sure enough, Blizzard appears unable to make anyone happy in this regard, with one card in particular inciting rage as to its survival, Spreading Plague. While the Plague has been nerfed in the past, people still garner hatred towards it. After all, the card shuts down certain playstyles and doesn't have particularly strong counters. Well, it has some, Void Ripper, Mossy Horror, but regardless. The nerf to Giggling Inventor will lessen Mossy Horror's impact on the meta, which players feel will lead to this card becoming too powerful. Those concerns are reasonable. However, as I read these comments on Reddit and Twitter, I can't help but be disappointed in the community. Frustrated, even. I have been keeping an eye on what players have been saying in regards to the Boomsday meta, and it annoys me how the commentary appears ubiquitously negative, and yet nobody has a solution that makes any sense. And now players are complaining about Spreading Plague as if it not being touched will bring doom to us all. However, I'd instead argue, a nerf to Spreading Plague is the last thing we need right now. Vicious Syndicate recently released an article about meta Polarity, which is a subject that is probably worth its own Hearthstone theory, another time. If you're more interested in this, there's a link to the article in the description. The simple version is, the higher meta Polarity is, the more likely a match is decided right when it begins. Odd Rogue beats Priest, Odd Warrior beats Odd Rogue, Shudderwalk Shaman beats Odd Warrior. These statements are true because of this polarity. And when the whole meta is highly polarized, that is a problem, since the choices made in gameplay matter less in regards to whether or not you win. Game designer Mike Donier's response to this was perhaps a tad condescending. Small side note, I don't believe Donier was truly attempting to be spiteful or cruel in this comment. My guess is that he just chose his words poorly, like we often do on the internet. I'm talking to you, comments section. Anyways, what this article and this comment from Donier show me is twofold. First, meta polarity is surprisingly high right now, as some players have noticed and complained about. Second, Blizzard are well aware. They know that they should avoid going too high with this number, but at the same time other variables affect this significantly. Any decisions they make need to be made with this value in mind, to avoid it going any higher. With that in mind, take another look at Spreading Plague. While it is a frustratingly powerful defensive card, it's worth noting that it's pretty much the only defensive card Druid has, with perhaps the only other example being Branching Paths. Getting rid of it would continue to make Druid decks on a whole weak to aggro, which would spike meta polarity even higher. Does that seem like a good idea right now? There's also the fact that when facing Druid, you often need to strategize around Spreading Plague. That's a gameplay decision which naturally decreases meta polarity. A player that chooses a strategy that keeps a small board would do better than one that keeps a wide board. So the smarter the player is, the better they do against Druid. Once again, looking how high the polarity is, a nerf to Spreading Plague would do nothing but increase that divide by removing this strategic element. I will note that this is just a hypothesis that I have since I have not been able to test this myself, but so far it makes sense to me. If you disagree and you think that nerfing Spreading Plague would decrease meta polarity, let me know in the comments. But the fact of the matter is, these nerfs were good nerfs. Blizzard listened to our concerns and addressed them. Blizzard also looked at cards that were inherently a problem, and they addressed them. But with many of the problems in Hearthstone, sometimes the best decision is inaction. Unfortunately, thanks to the community's demand for change, inaction wasn't an option. So if you're frustrated that certain cards weren't touched, I understand, but don't think that Blizzard ignored these cards out of stupidity. If you truly believe you know what's better for Hearthstone than Blizzard does, then honestly, I would check your hubris. Blizzard aren't idiots. The Hearthstone community would do well to remember that.